Today I want to talk a little bit about something which I'm sure every vegetarian or vegan has heard at least once in their life, which is it's okay for us to eat meat because humans are omnivores. We're designed to eat meat, we've always eaten meat, other omnivorous animals eat meat and carnivorous animals, so we should do the same. What's wrong with it? I just want to address that today, so let's get right into it. I'm going to begin with the premise that humans are omnivores. Now, as I've said, that is debated among scientists and biologists about whether our body is actually meant to eat meat primarily. If you look at some of our closest relatives like the apes and the gorillas, they're mainly frugivores. They mainly survive off fruit and insects and very occasionally meat. But I'll just begin with the premise that we are omnivores. So what does that mean? Well, that means that, as we know, we can survive eating meat. We can eat meat and vegetables and have a balanced, if you will, diet of both. We can get nutrients from meat, we're able to digest it, cooked anyway. So we're omnivorous animals, we are able to have it. So seeing as we're able to digest it, we're able to do we actually need it? Now, given that vegetarianism has been around for years, hundreds of years, I'm not sure how long, but I mean, Leonardo da Vinci was vegetarian, so quite a few years. We know that we can survive without meat. Veganism obviously has been around for less time, but given the amount of vegans and vegetarians alive today, living long, healthy lives, and the amount of research that's been done into vegetarian and vegan diets, we know that you can live a healthy, long life without eating meat. Now, given that, why should we not eat meat? Now, at this stage, many people will argue that we are omnivorous animals, we do have a choice, it's my choice to eat meat. Other omnivorous animals and carnivorous animals eat meat, so why shouldn't I? Now, this comparison to other animals is quite an interesting one, because you'll often find that people will compare themselves to other animals in some ways, but not in others. I mean, other animals do a lot of things that we find morally apprehensible. For example, and I know people might find this slightly offensive, but for example, a paedophile would be naturally inclined to, would be naturally attracted to a child. Now that's natural for them, whether it's encouraged by life events or whether it's just something to do with their brain chemistry. They're attracted to children. And I mean, younger girls, sort of pre-teen and teenagers, are the most fertile, and historically in Western culture and in many other cultures around the world, paedophilia has been acceptable. It's been the norm. So that's another issue, actually, social changes and the way in which we view things differently over time. But I mean, in the animal kingdom, it's rife. It's usually young cats and kittens, young puppies, young animals, which are able to reproduce because they're the most fertile. But in our culture, in the world today, generally, paedophilia is not accepted. It's completely immoral. It's one of the worst things that you can do. But why? If other animals do it, why shouldn't we? Because of morality. Because we feel for another being. We know that paedophile's desire to engage sexually with that child does not override that child's right to live free from harm. That children and teenagers and even babies who aren't able to verbally express it can feel pain, are emotionally affected by these things. So we don't allow one person's desire to override the other person's life. Now, in many ways in society, this is enough. If someone is doing something horrible to another person, or companion animal even, just because they want to, and they're harming that other person, then that is immoral. That is not right. Even if other animals may engage in those activities with each other in the wild, we don't do that because we don't need to, and we understand, we have empathy for other beings, on the most part. So, going back to the natural fallacy, survival of the fittest is a phrase used to describe animals in the wild, and how if you're able to adapt your environment, if you're able to be strong enough to survive, then your species will continue. Now, for other animals, that can mean a lot of brutal things, basically. That will mean disabled children, children of the animals, disabled babies or weaker, vulnerable animals will be killed off, either by predators, by their own parents, so that they could focus on the children that they know are going to live, just by not being able to find enough food and shelter. Now, in our society, that's not true. We actually, in general, help the vulnerable. You know, we have carers, we have wheelchairs, we have artificial limbs, we have everything. We have hospitals to help the ill, to help the sick, to help children who are born prematurely, children with illnesses. We try to help them, whereas naturally, that doesn't happen. Because these animals don't have the ability to do that. They don't have the ability to take care of the vulnerable, because they've got to think about their own survival and the other animals' survival, their children's survival. Now, knowing and understanding the major differences between the natural animal kingdom, wild animals, and how they function in their societies and in our society is vital in understanding why we are different from them and how much of an advantage we have, how much choice we have, and really how much how privileged we are as a species to be able to choose what we do, to be able to choose to be empathetic, to be compassionate, and to be able to help other animals within our own species or outside of it. Now, for eating meat, this relates because obviously we have the knowledge to know that we can go without meat. We have the ability to go without meat, as I've mentioned before. We know that we could do it health-wise as well. We know, I mean, a wild animal doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. They don't know. They have no idea what's going to happen the next day. They have no idea what their body needs specifically. They just know instinctually, I need to eat that antelope or whatever. We know nutritionally what we need to be healthy. We know what does what. We know a hell of a lot more than these animals do. And we know we can get it without having to harm other animals. We have supermarkets, we have nutritionists, we have hospitals, we have artificial food which tastes like animal products but isn't, but has the same nutritional value. I mean, it's incredible. We have such an advantage, and I think that equates to kind of responsibility to use that for good, in a good way, because we don't need to be like these wild animals. We don't need to say, oh, they do it, so we can do it as well, because we're not like them in so many other ways, so why use it to justify harming other animals? Now, a lot of people say, you know, oh, well, you're going to tell a lion not to eat an antelope. Isn't it still horrible for that prey animal to be eaten by the predator? You can't change the world. You know, that's the way nature is. And that is the way nature is. I'm not going to tell a tiger or a lion not to eat and just to starve to death because of the prey animals, because I care for that antelope or that zebra. I do, and it's incredibly sad, and nature is cruel, nature is horrible in some ways, but we don't need to add to that. As I say, there's so much cruelty in nature, there's so many animals dying of diseases, of so many things, and we combat that by having companion animals and taking care of them if they're ill, by having hospitals for people. We combat so many of nature's cruelties that to use nature to justify doing something cruel, surely it's backwards. I mean, even the way that we get meat isn't natural, but mass breeding, taking children away from their mothers to drink their mother's milk, it's not natural. And even if the animals had a nice life, and I might do a separate video on this because it's quite a big topic that people think that it's okay to kill animals had a nice life, I find that the biggest betrayal, because, I mean, if you think about it, if, you know, a family's kept a dog for years, for 10 years, and then the dog's getting a bit old, they don't want it anymore, it's had a nice life, but they leave it at the side of the road to die, or, you know, they abandon it, they move house and they just leave it in the house. Everyone, I'm sure, finds that horribly horrible, because that dog has had faith in that person, it's trusted them, and to betray that trust is horrible. And it's incredibly sad, and it is for other animals as well, because they know what's happening. I mean, even if a few seconds before that animal dies, it thinks, oh God, I shouldn't have trusted this person. Why are they doing this to me? I don't want the animal to have that few seconds of horrible feelings. I mean, at least with other prey animals in the wild, they do have a chance. They have a fighting chance to run, to hide, it's even. I mean, a cow doesn't stand a chance against a knife or a cattle prod or electric prod, anything. A cow doesn't stand a chance. A van, being shoved into a van and taken to slaughter. I mean, it's not a fair fight. And although it's horribly depressing if a lion catches a zebra and rips it apart, at least that animal did have a freedom in life and a chance to fight at the end of it. Now, whether animals feel pain and other emotions has been questioned a lot as well. A lot of people think, cows and sheep and pigs, they're stupid or they're unemotional. They don't show joy, they don't show happiness, they don't show fear, they don't show anything. Now, if you've seen slaughterhouse footage or anything like that, they do. You can see that they do. In a farm, maybe not all the time, because they're conditioned to feel it's their life, isn't it? I mean, if someone's, stuck in prison for years, solitary confinement, at the beginning, they'll go apeshit, probably, and they'll go, oh, it's horrible. But once you've been there for months and years, you get used to it. You can't always be sad. You can't always be angry, because there's nothing you can do about it. They're conditioned that way. That's all they've ever known. Now, as for also actually something which I hadn't considered until relatively recently, is that these are prey animals. Cows and sheep and things. Prey animals don't generally show emotions, show sadness, show fear, because naturally it wouldn't be good for them. It wouldn't be to their advantage. They have to hide their emotions, otherwise they're much easier prey to get attacked. You know what I mean? It's much easier for them to get caught by a predator, or if they show any vulnerabilities, that's bad for their survival. So naturally, they're probably not going to show those emotions as much, even if they probably do feel them. Of course they would, and you do catch glimpses of it, in footage which animal rights things have taken, and people say it's propaganda, but you can't really set up a cow to look a certain way or to behave a certain way. You know what I mean? So you can see it, and not even just animal rights things, just like pet, cows or pigs or sheep, or ones at sanctuaries, or ones that have been set free, like animals in labs who've just gone out onto the grass for the first time. You can't fake that kind of emotion, that happiness and that joy that they're showing. And the last point I wanted to go on to is, a lot of people question the intelligence of the animals. So even if they have these raw emotions of, fear or the natural survival instinct, are they actually smart enough to process what's going on? And does intelligence equal value of life, basically? And a lot of people say, yeah, it does. They're so stupid, they don't know what's going on. It doesn't really matter. They don't value their life anyway, so we may as well use them. That I will actually save for a separate video, because I wanted to talk about that, about value of life equaling intelligence. I mean, obviously, pigs have been shown to be smarter than, like, a 4-year-old child, I think it is. Obviously, babies can't verbalise their emotions. They can't do anything. A cow could do more than a baby can. Is it just the fact that baby has the potential to grow up to be a normal, functioning, intelligent human? What about people who, do have some disabilities, physical or psychological? They're not as intelligent or as advantaged as other people. What about elderly people who, have dementia and things like that? They're not useful to society. They're not they're not as much as smart as and is their life that of less value than other normal humans? But as I say, that's probably something for a different video. But just generally, cows, sheep, pigs and chickens all have the ability to show compassion and empathy, to like cats and dogs, to, you know, rub up against humans, to cuddle with humans, etc., and other animals, to care for other animals, to care for their own, and to learn things, like to learn to count. Chickens can, don't like horses, learn tricks and things like dogs. So to question their intelligence, I mean, clutching at straws a little bit. Anyway, as I say, I'm going to end this video here. I will go into the separate things a little bit more if people are confused, but I just generally wanted to cover the fact that humans are omnivores is not an excuse to eat animals, because we don't need to. Even if we can, we don't need to, and we have the ability not to, and that puts us at a major advantage. And I feel like we have kind of a responsibility to these animals, as we feel we do to each other, to care for the vulnerable, to care for the disadvantaged, and things like that. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm sorry if it's a bit rambly. I did have a structure to this video, but I kind of went off it a little bit. So yeah, sorry about that. But thank you for watching. Bye!